And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking George Russell versus Max Verstappen for that Mercedes seat, possibly in 2026. Or is this all a cunning ruse for us to clickbait, talk about it, run contract prices up, play games? To be honest, I don't think anyone knows. I've not seen anything concrete. So is George Russell going to leave Mercedes? Maybe. Should Max even go to Mercedes? And that's what I really want to talk about as well. So we'll talk about it and have 5 reasons why Max shouldn't go to Mercedes. So this was the thing that sparked it all this morning. So Max Verstappen open to Mercedes switch as talks apparently intensify, according to Sky Italy. The problem is, believe them as far as you can probably throw your mum and dad together in one go, long dart style, because massive pinch of salt, if I'm honest, when you look in between it. But okay, we'll play along for the time being. So Toto Wolf, if you remember all the way back in April, he said, I'm super happy with the lineup we have and I couldn't wish for anything better. We haven't had a conversation with Max. Okay, I get it, Toto. Well done. Not too bad there. Now, on X, we've got the copy of this interview, which I think is quite interesting. It's about the conversations of both Toto and Verstappen. And so when you say George is likeliest to be in your car, likelier than Max, he said yes, absolutely. This was not that long ago as well. Let's have a listen.
To pick up on the interview George gave to us, where he said that maybe the delay in his own contract was because it was only natural that conversations with the likes of Verstappen were ongoing.
So George Russell pretty much said that at the beginning of the Austrian Grand Prix, which was interesting. Was it a political move, I wonder? But George Russell was quite open about the fact that he's confident about next year, he's confident about getting a contract, but they are talking, as in Mercedes and Toto Wolff are talking to Max Verstappen. And this is something that Toto Wolff has suggested and been flirting with Max Verstappen all the while.
Are such conversations ongoing, Toto?
First of all, there is no delay in George's contract negotiations because it's pretty clear since a long time what our timings were.
I mean, let's just...
There is no delay in George's contract negotiations because it's...
He said there's no delay in George Russell's contract negotiations, and that's what I think is, I mean, this guy, Verstappen, is he going to be Kimi? Is he going to be George Russell? He flip-flops more than a pair of Havanas, because quite clearly there's going to be a delay in George Russell's contract negotiations because the Verstappen thing is there. Now, if there was no delay, they would have signed it already, surely. Maybe they're just dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Potentially, this is all wrong as we record this on Wednesday, the 2nd of July, just before 6 o'clock in the evening. It's just a bit weird, isn't it? I don't understand why you haven't signed him already. But, well, we know why, but he's just not admitting it.
Because it's pretty clear since a long time what our timings were and are, and you know we've known each other for such a long time, and
yes.
So there is no such thing as a delay.
Okay.
But
there is.
You know, as a team principal responsible for the best car brand in the world.
Now, this is what I understand. Obviously, Mercedes, a very good car brand. Yes, he's saying one of the best in the world. So when you build the best car, you want the best driver. And at the moment, in terms of this generation of cars, it is very much Max Verstappen who is in the driving seat. He is the driver that's going to be most sought out of because a lot of people see that he's the most talented driver. He's the most informed driver. That I understand. He's a 4-time world champion.
It's clear that you're exploring what a 4-time world champion is going to do in the future.
Here we go.
It's clear that you're exploring what a 4-time world...
What a 7-time world champion, Toto! Lewis Hamilton is living rent-free in his head / Freudian slip. I'm just glad he didn't say 8. Here we go. Here it is again.
The best car
Ready?
In the world.
Ready?
It's clear that you're exploring what a 4-time world champion is going to do in the future.
Fair enough.
And that could be long into the future. And that's clear, but that has no effect on,
Now, it's interesting he mentions long into the future, simply because is Mercedes in 2026? Fair enough, George. You've got that. They're waiting for that Verstappen contract to end. As we know, it ends in 2028 with Red Bull. I think that's his last year. 2029, he's potentially free. So, is that the long-term plan? We'll give George a short-term contract and see. Having said that, by the time that short-term contract, 1 or 2 year contract may have run out, George Russell could be a 1 or 2-time world champion. And then what do you do?
Us putting a signature on George's contract.
So, what tentative conversations with Max's people, is that the best way to understand it? About maybe the future beyond next year, potentially?
Yeah, I think it's also a long-term perspective.
There you go, he's admitting what we're saying. It is a long-term perspective.
And to understand what is the framework that you're operating under. No more, no less.
So it's very political speak as well. He's been very cagey almost about what he's saying.
Would you say George is the likeliest to be in your car, likelier than Max next season?
Yes.
Absolutely. And he's not disappointed.
And that's what's quite interesting. Let's go back there. And that's the most pertinent question in this interview, isn't it?
No more, no less.
So would you say George is the likeliest to be in your car, likelier than Max next season?
Yes.
Absolutely. And he's not disappointed by this at all. You sense he's perfectly accepting of all that.
You know, what we're trying to do in the team is to be transparent as good as we are.
About transparency, but I think that's quite prevalent. I mean, he's saying, yes, absolutely, it's more than likely going to be George. But then why don't you just announce it? They may well announce it for the British Grand Prix. But there you go, that's Toto Wolf's very interesting interview. Let's look at this original article. Well, not the original Sky Italy article. Max Verstappen, it says here, from Sky, open to Mercedes switches talks with Red Bull driver intensify. That's from Sky in Italy. Once again, massive. I think we're talking a bucket of salt, if I'm really honest. Not grains, not teaspoons, tablespoons. So he's open to leaving. I think every driver is open to leaving their team if given the right set of circumstances. And obviously they're saying the speculation ramped up at the Austrian Grand Prix when George Russell, and yes, George also helped start all this up, I think even before that Sky article, that he admitted that Mercedes were having ongoing conversations with Verstappen. And obviously Toto Wolff confirmed. And the report says the Mercedes boss is unsure if the signing of Verstappen is necessary. I don't think it is. You've got George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. So you've already got a solid driver, a championship contender. Yes, he hasn't won a championship yet. But it says Sky Sports understands Verstappen. And this is the interesting thing here. Sky Sports News understands Verstappen has not indicated he wants to leave Red Bull early. Nor has there been an official approach from Mercedes for the reigning F1 World Champion. Let me read that again. Sky Sports News understands Verstappen has not indicated he wants to leave Red Bull early, nor has there been an official approach from Mercedes for the reigning F1 World Champion. They're just talking, flirting, etc. And people are getting into an absolute massive panic over it. All these rumours, I'm seeing these fake Verstappen to Mercedes for 2026 on Facebook, X and everything. Just makes me, it's just get over it. But that's right now, as of recording it, just before 6 o'clock on Wednesday the 2nd of July. That's it. That's the main story. However, if he does go, let's talk then about 5 reasons why Max is not a good fit for Mercedes, okay? Now, you might think he is. This is just throwing it out there. A few things. Now, number 1, the team dynamics and the power struggle. Well, what do you mean, pray tell? Well, as we know, Verstappen, he comes with a lot of political weight and influences, especially at Red Bull. Now, you could have a look at that and say he comes with a lot of baggage. Now, as we know, this Red Bull team has been built around Max ever since Danny Ricciardo left, which is one of the reasons why the number 2 car absolutely just fails, isn't it? But under Toto Wolff, when we look at Mercedes, they have a more balanced approach, and over the years, we know this. Placing Verstappen alongside Hamilton, if he were still there, for example, would disrupt any strategic balance. Hamilton gone, so who are you going to replace him with? Kimi Antonelli or George Russell? His presence could lead to this internal friction. What Mercedes don't want is a Nico Rosberg and Max Verstappen, Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton years, where it very much there was a divided gouge, and that could happen with Max Verstappen. We know what happened, with Carlos Sainz. It became a divided gouge. It was looking like that with Danny Ricciardo, but Danny Ricciardo up and left. Now, yes, they say, Danny Ricciardo ran away from a fight. Potentially he did, but I think he also ran away because he didn't want to be Mark Webber version 2, where the team so blatantly favoured Sebastian Vettel at the time with Webber that they were looking to do with Max Verstappen. He maybe saw the writing on the wall. Maybe. Number 2, conflict with Mercedes culture. Now, as we know, Mercedes, unlike Red Bull, is very corporate. They sell cars, they sell high-class cars, they're collaborative. They are relatively they have an understated culture compared to Red Bull's, which is very much aggressive, in your face, very driver-centric approach. Just have a look at both their websites and what they get up to. It's very, very different. Now, as we know, Verstappen is very much a Red Bull driver. Because of that, he's intense, he's a combative style, which is why he has so many fans. It is effective, but does that then align with Mercedes' ethos? You have to start wondering. Integrating a personality like Max could be quite jarring for the values of that Mercedes team. Number 3, let's talk about George Russell. George Russell is younger. He has deep ties with Mercedes. He was in their junior program. He is, like Kimi Antonelli, is a Mercedes protege. And he's seen as a long-term investment. He's already familiar with the team. He's already familiar with the systems and the expectations. Replacing George, which seems to be the likely, if you believe the stories, with Max Verstappen, that would sacrifice a bit of continuity. And that's particularly valuable as Mercedes works to recover performance. They are struggling with those regulation changes. And then there's no guarantee that they're going to get the 2026 regulations right. We all know they have a very strong engine, but what was different between 2013 and 2014 was they had the number 1 engine and they didn't have to share that number 1 engine, all the details with all the teams. And now they do, and that's maybe why McLaren are beating them, for example. But George is a long-term asset. Now let's look at financial and political complexity. Big word, but that's number 4. So, as we know, Verstappen is under a lucrative long-term contract with Red Bull through 2028. Buying him out, if they have to, if this contract clause that we don't know really exists, but we suspect there's one there, but it's not really been 110% confirmed what that contract clause actually is. Buying him out could potentially involve what is a massive financial outlay, and there could be legal political battles, which are going to be distracting and costly. Now, Mercedes, they're going to be taking however way they sign Verstappen. If they sign it, it's going to come at a massive cost, and that's something the board is going to have to justify. That's also something that they didn't want with Lewis Hamilton's new contract, because we know they said no. Yes, Hamilton was in the twilight evening of his career. Verstappen is at the peak of his powers, but to a certain extent, the Mercedes team and Toto Wolff still have to answer to ultimately to the board. Number 5, we have a technical mismatch, and this is about the car philosophy of both Red Bull and Mercedes. So the Red Bull and Mercedes, they have very different cars in the way they're set up, especially in terms of their chassis and the aero setup. This has been known for quite a while. For example, Verstappen is known to prefer a car with a very specific balance, which has made it hard. We've got proof of it now. Tsunoda, who is a fairly strong driver, is absolutely nowhere. Liam Lawson, who now, did solid in Austria, was absolutely nowhere. Sergio Perez, who was a good driver, was absolutely nowhere. And that's not a coincidence. It's all because of this car. Verstappen is known to prefer a car, as we said, with this balance. Very pointy and oversteery. Mercedes cannot provide a car that suits his style right away. And that's something that even Lewis Hamilton struggled with. The partnership may underdeliver. Now, unlike Lewis, I think Max Verstappen is very keen to show his frustrations a lot more than someone like Lewis Hamilton. And that's going to be interesting, and that goes again with our previous talk about he's very combative. That's the 5 reasons why we think he's potentially not quite a good fit for Mercedes. However, if he wants to go to Mercedes anyway, I think he'd be ultimately he'd be very, very successful. But there's the buts, which we've spoken about. What do you think? Do you think Verstappen has a chance of going to Mercedes? Do you think he should be going to Mercedes? Let us know. Comment below. And until then, thank you very much for watching. If you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video. But until then, we'll speak to you soon. Hit that like button if you want. Give us a smile. And stay safe. This is the point where I hit the outro. Found it. Bye.